What is up, my brothers and sisters? It's your boy Juice. The ground is shaking like crazy right now. Um, the sun is setting later. Um, the animals are acting funny. People are acting funny. I just wanted to touch on so-called preppers, right? A couple of years ago, I'll tell you a little story about myself and my experience. When I saw this stuff coming miles away a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start prepping because things are going to happen soon, right? So I started buying food, right? I was buying defensive weapons. I was, the whole nine yards, right? I was making I was coming up with ideas on how I would hold it down at the house, right? And you know, the thing about these so-called preppers that you watch on YouTube and are giving you advice, all of them have the same theme. And that one theme is the thing that they fail to acknowledge. Because all in all, from what I'm understanding is, because things happen in the world, right? Whether it's economic collapse, war, aliens invading, giant tarantulas coming, it doesn't matter. Um, and all these crises keep happening. And I always hear time and time again from these preppers, they're like, that's why we prep, right? So that you're not standing in line at the store when everybody else is, right? That's why we prep, right? That's why our pantry's full. That's why the shoddy is loaded, right? Um, you know, the thing that they fail to acknowledge and this is where I ended up finding the fault in prepping. And now that with that being said, I had a pantry full of food, I had weapons, I was like, man, I'm starting to think that, I'm going to be at least somewhat a little ready. And then shit happens. You know what I'm saying? Shit happens. And what I mean by that is, you know, basically your house could catch on fire. What about all the bad weather? What about when a tornado comes and blows your house away, right? What about when looters come banging on each door, right? What about when stragglers come along, right? So, with that being said, I'm under the notion that these people are going to prep and have barrels of water, pantries of food, and they're going to hold it down at their house, right? Wherever they may live. They might have property in the woods, right? Blah, blah, blah. They might live in the city, whatever. But ultimately, I'm like, so you're just going to bug out in your house until you run out of food, right? You're just going to bug out in your house and hold it down if stragglers come along because the shoddy's loaded. Well, let me give you an example of what I'm trying to say. Shit happens. I couldn't afford to stay where I was staying anymore, so I had all this pantry full of food, all this prepper stuff, right? I had to get rid of it. I literally got rid of most of it. I just gave it to people because what am I supposed to do? It's food and blah, 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 right? Nobody was going to want to buy it. And if I don't take it with me, I'm just going to put it at the corner for the dump to take away, and somebody's just going to take it then, right? It's free game now, right? Like it's somebody else's because I can't take it with me. So I ended up not being able to afford where I was staying. And all that prep and all that stuff ended up being all this extra stuff that I couldn't take with me or carry with me. It was like a bunch of weight. And so from there on, it made me realize something. Prepping has nothing to do with getting all the supplies and hunkering down in your house. So when you run out of food, you could just wait to die, right? What about when stragglers come along or gangsters or looters? You're just going to hold it down in your house with the shoddy? Well, what about when they set your house on fire and they just wait for you to come out, right? If you do. Did you ever take that into consideration, right? And when they set your house on fire and you just barricaded yourself in, well, then you're going to burn with the house, Well, that takes care of him. We didn't even have to confront him, right? He didn't come outside and the house just burned, right? What about, when tornadoes come? What about when you can't afford the place to stay? So ultimately, a real prepper is going to be somebody who stays on the move. Because again, when you run out of food, let's just say that you are able to hunker down and nobody ever comes. You're gonna run out of food, right? You're gonna run out of food, and you're gonna have to leave anyways. The object is to travel lightly. The object, if you want to be a real prepper, is to not hunker down and all that. You got to stay on the move. And when I mean stay on the move, your best bet is not confrontation or violence. Your best bet is to stay invisible, avoid detection, and learn how to hide. That's what a real survivalist and a prepper would do. And learn how to hone your skills and find food elsewhere. Quietly if you can. That's a prepper. So these guys that keep saying buy this product, this blah blah blah. They're like, you don't even know what you're talking about, dude. If you're gonna be a survivor and you're gonna be a prepper, all that bullshit you're talking about, buying all this food, hunkering down in the house, that ain't gonna work. There's so many faults to it, and you're just gonna be waiting to die. You're gonna be like an animal in the corner that has nowhere else to go whenever you face these hard situations that I just explained. So these so-called preppers, you can take their advice if you want, but I've experienced other things.